Welcome back to the Bechange Center for Autism podcast.
Today we're diving into a topic that's generating a lot of buzz these days.
Yeah,
Virtual autism.
virtual autism.
Yeah.
As ABA therapists here at Bechange Center for Autism, we're seeing more and more parents concerned about the impact of screen time on their little ones.
It's definitely a hot topic.
Yeah.
And for good reason.
Right,
While virtual autism isn't an official medical diagnosis,
right.
it's become a helpful term for describing a pattern of behaviors that resemble autism spectrum disorder. But these behaviors are often linked to excessive screen time and a lack of those essential real-world interactions kids need.
Exactly. And that's why we wanted to dedicate this deep dive to helping you, our listeners, understand this complex issue. We'll unpack the science behind it, explore the common signs, and most importantly, equip you with practical strategies and ABA techniques you can use to support healthy development in the children you care for.
I think it's really important to start by understanding how our brains develop, especially in those early years.
Yeah.
You see, a child's brain is incredibly adaptable. It's like a sponge soaking up experiences and forming connections based on those experiences.
Right.
We call this brain plasticity.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember from my ABA training how crucial those early years are. It's like the foundation is being laid for all those essential skills.
Yes,
Language, social interaction, problem solving, the whole 9 yards.
precisely. So imagine a child's brain like a forest with paths.
Okay.
The more you walk a particular path, the clearer and more defined it becomes.
Right.
Those well-worn paths represent the neural connections that are strengthened through real-world experiences like talking, playing, and exploring.
Okay, I'm following you. So what happens when screens enter the picture?
Well, screens offer a very different kind of stimulation.
Yeah.
It's intense, it's fast-paced, and it often provides instant gratification.
Right.
Think flashing lights, catchy jingles, and quick rewards in games and apps.
Yeah.
This can lead to an overload of dopamine, that feel-good chemical in our brains.
I think we've all experienced that dopamine rush. You start scrolling on your phone and suddenly an hour has gone by.
Exactly. And while dopamine is essential for learning and motivation, excessive screen time can actually hijack the brain's reward system.
Wow.
It's like creating a super highway in that forest, a digital highway that's so bright and stimulating that those natural forest paths, the ones built through real-world interactions, start to get neglected.
That's such a powerful analogy. It really helps visualize how screen time can impact brain development.
Yeah,
So how does this translate into actual behaviors?
that's a good question.
What signs might indicate a child is experiencing challenges related to excessive screen time?
You might notice a child exhibiting reduced eye contact,
Okay.
preferring to look at a screen rather than engage with people.
Yeah.
Or perhaps they're increasingly withdrawn socially, choosing solitary screen time over playing with friends.
And I've seen some kids start echoing phrases or dialogues from their favorite shows or games, almost like they're scripting their interactions.
That's a good point. It's called echolalia. And while it can be part of typical development, it's something to pay attention to if it's excessive or interfering with communication.
Right.
Another sign might be an over-reliance on screens for comfort.
Okay.
The child might turn to a tablet or TV when they're upset rather than seeking comfort from a caregiver.
It's almost like the screen becomes a substitute for human connection.
Yeah,
And I know from working with families that transitioning away from screens can be a huge paddle tantrums, meltdowns, you name it.
absolutely. And you might observe a decline in imaginative play.
Okay.
The child's play themes might revolve solely around digital content they've consumed rather than creating their own scenarios and engaging in that rich pretend play that's so crucial for development.
I had a little guy I was working with who would only play Minecraft scenarios even when he was using building blocks. It was like his imagination was stuck in the digital world.
That's so common these days, unfortunately. And sometimes you'll see sensory oversensitivity. Children might become overwhelmed by real-world sounds, lights, or even touch because they're so used to the controlled sensory environment of a screen.
Right, it's like their sensory systems are on overdrive. We also often see language delays.
Yeah.
A lack of back and forth conversation can hinder language development. Some kids might have difficulty expressing their needs or understanding simple instructions.
And let's not forget about sleep disturbances.
Oh, right.
The blue light emitted from screens can interfere with melatonin production, making it harder for children to fall asleep and stay asleep.
So we've covered a lot of potential signs here. What's the key takeaway for parents and caregivers listening to this?
It's important to remember that while these behaviors can be concerning,
Uh-huh.
they are often reversible with early intervention by addressing the root causes like excessive screen time and limited real-world interaction. We can help children develop those essential skills they need to thrive.
That's a message of hope we want to emphasize. Now let's shift gears and talk about some of the societal and lifestyle factors that are contributing to this rise in virtual autism-like behaviors.
Okay.
Family structures have changed a lot in recent decades, and I think that plays a role, right?
Absolutely. In the past, it was more common for one parent to stay at home, providing consistent care and interaction for young children.
Yeah.
But now, with both parents often working full-time, there's less opportunity for that direct face-to-face interaction.
And digital devices have often stepped in to fill that gap. It's easy to hand a child a tablet or turn on the TV to keep them occupied, especially when parents are juggling work and other responsibilities.
Exactly. And I think we've also seen a decline in unstructured playtime.
Yeah.
Children aren't getting those crucial opportunities to develop social skills, learn to regulate their emotions, and problem solve through play.
I remember growing up, we spent hours outside building forts, playing tag, and just letting our imaginations run wild. Those were such formative experiences.
You're so right. And then, of course, we had the pandemic, which really amplified the reliance on screens for both childcare and education.
Right.
Virtual learning became the norm, and screen time skyrocketed for many children.
It's like we created a perfect storm for virtual autism-like behaviors to emerge. So it's not just about the screens themselves,
Yeah.
but the broader context of how we're using them and what they're replacing in terms of real-world experiences.
You hit the nail on the head, and that brings us to the most important part of this conversation. What can we do about it?
Right.
How can we support children who might be struggling and promote healthy development in a tech-saturated world?
Okay, let's dive into that.
Welcome back to the Bechange Center for Autism podcast.
We're continuing our deep dive into virtual autism, exploring those practical strategies and ABA techniques you can use to support healthy development in children.
In the last part, we talked about the importance of reducing screen time and promoting real-world interactions.
Right, and how those two things are super crucial for creating a balanced environment that supports a child's development.
Now let's get into some specific ABA therapy techniques that can help us achieve these goals.
Okay, I'm excited to hear about this because, as you know, ABA is all about understanding behavior and using that knowledge to create positive change,
Exactly. And one of the core principles of ABA is positive reinforcement.
which is all about rewarding desired behaviors to make them more likely to happen again.
Precisely. So let's say you're trying to reduce a child's screen time.
Instead of focusing on the negative, like taking away the device, we can focus on rewarding the child for engaging in alternative activities.
For example, if a child chooses to play with blocks instead of watching TV, we can praise their choice, give them a high five, or even offer a small tangible reward like a sticker or a few minutes of extra playtime.
And that positive reinforcement makes it more likely that the child will choose the desired behavior again in the future.
Another ABA technique that can be super helpful is called shaping.
Shaping, I haven't heard of that one.
It's all about breaking down a complex skill into smaller, more manageable steps.
Oh, I see. So instead of expecting a child to go from spending hours on screens to 0 screen time overnight, we set smaller goals and gradually work our way up.
Exactly. So maybe we start by reducing screen time by 15 minutes each day, and then gradually increase that amount over time.
And as the child achieves each goal, we reinforce their progress with praise and rewards.
This helps the child feel successful and motivated to keep moving forward.
Now, another ABA technique that I've found to be super effective is prompting.
Prompting is all about providing cues or assistance to help a child engage in a desired behavior.
So if we're trying to encourage a child to play with a toy, we might demonstrate how to play with it or offer verbal prompts like, let's build a tower with these blocks.
Exactly. And as the child becomes more independent, we can gradually fade those prompts until they're able to engage in the behavior on their own.
And that fading process is so important because it helps the child develop the skills they need to be successful without constant support.
Now, in addition to these core ABA techniques, I think it's also crucial to create a structured and predictable environment for children.
Especially for children who might be struggling with virtual autism.
Exactly. Children thrive on routine and predictability. It helps them feel safe and secure, which can reduce anxiety and challenging behaviors.
So establishing consistent daily routines for things like meals, bedtime, and playtime can make a huge difference.
And within those routines, we can incorporate opportunities for real-world interactions and learning.
For example, we can have dedicated time for reading aloud together, playing board games, We're doing arts and crafts.
And don't forget about the importance of outdoor play.
Oh, absolutely. Getting kids out in nature is so beneficial for their physical and mental health.
It provides opportunities for sensory exploration, gross motor development, and social interaction.
Plus, it's just plain fun. I often recommend to parents that they try incorporating what we call a sensory diet into their child's daily routine.
A sensory diet. Tell me more about that.
It's essentially a personalized plan that includes activities and sensory experiences that help a child regulate their sensory system. Some kids might need more heavy work activities like jumping, pushing, or carrying heavy objects. These activities provide proprioceptive input, which can be calming and organizing.
That makes sense. And what about kids who are sensitive to touch or sounds?
We might recommend activities that provide tactile input like playing with Play-Doh finger painting or even just getting a good bear hug. And for kids who are sensitive to sounds, we might suggest using noise-canceling headphones or creating a quiet corner where they can go to decompress.
These are all fantastic tips, and it really highlights how understanding a child's individual sensory needs can be key to addressing those challenging behaviors.
Exactly. And the best part is that these sensory activities can easily be incorporated into playtime and everyday routines. It doesn't have to feel like therapy. It could just be part of having fun and enjoying life.
Now, as we're talking about these strategies, I think it's important to remember that every child is unique.
Right. What works for one child might not work for another.
So it's crucial to individualize our approach based on each child's specific needs and strengths.
And that's where collaboration with parents and caregivers is so essential.
We need to work together to develop a plan that's tailored to the child and their family's unique circumstances.
And to be flexible and adjust the plan as needed.
Now, in addition to the techniques we've discussed, there are a few other things that parents and caregivers can do to support children who might be struggling with virtual autism.
Like what? Welcome back to the Bechange Center for Autism podcast.
We're wrapping up our deep dive into virtual autism.
In the last two parts, we talk about recognizing the signs, understanding the causes, and exploring practical strategies, including those awesome ABA techniques, to address this growing concern.
Right. We covered a lot of ground from reducing screen time to promoting those all-important real-world interactions.
And how those things are super important for fostering healthy development in children.
Now, for this final part, let's shift gears a bit and talk about nurturing creativity, imagination, and social skills in a world that's, let's face it, dominated by technology.
It's funny you should say that because I was just having this conversation with a parent the other day. She was telling me how her son used to love building elaborate Lego creations, but now he just wants to watch YouTube videos of other people building Legos.
That's so interesting, and it really speaks to how easily kids can get caught up in passive screen time instead of engaging in those creative, hands-on activities.
Exactly, and I think that's where we as parents, caregivers, and therapists really need to step in and provide those opportunities for creativity to blossom.
Absolutely. So what are some practical things we can do?
Well, I think one of the most powerful tools we have for fostering creativity and imagination is good old-fashioned play.
Oh, I love that. Play is so important. It's how children learn, explore, and make sense of the world around them.
And there are so many different types of play that we can encourage. You've got your classic pretend play, where kids can be anything they want, from doctors to astronauts to superheroes.
And then you've got your constructive play, where they build things, create structures, and use their problem-solving skills. I remember when my daughter was little, she would spend hours building towers and castles out of blocks. She was so proud of her creations.
That's wonderful. And don't forget about those games that involve rules and turn-taking, like board games or card games.
Those are fantastic for developing social skills, learning to follow instructions, and practicing cooperation.
And, the best part is that play doesn't have to be expensive or complicated.
You can use everyday objects, household items, or even just your imagination to create endless possibilities for play.
Right, like building a fort out of blankets and pillows or turning cardboard boxes into spaceships. It's amazing what kids can come up with when you give them the freedom to explore.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that our role as adults is not to direct the play, but to provide a supportive and encouraging environment.
Exactly. We want to follow the child's lead, ask open-ended questions, and let their imaginations run wild.
Sometimes the simplest toys are the best. A set of blocks, some art supplies, or even just a pile of leaves can provide hours of entertainment and creative exploration.
Now, in addition to play, there are many other ways to nurture creativity and imagination, like reading aloud together.
Oh, yes. Reading exposes children to new vocabulary, different worlds, and endless possibilities.
And it sparks their imagination and helps them develop a love of language. One thing I always recommend to parents is to make reading a regular part of their daily routine. Even just 15-20 minutes a day can make a huge difference.
And don't forget about the power of art activities.
Drawing, painting, sculpting, crafting, these are all fantastic ways for children to express themselves creatively and develop their fine motor skills.
And there's no right or wrong way to create art. It's all about the process of exploration and self-expression.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to fostering social skills, I think it's important to provide opportunities for children to interact with others.
Absolutely, whether it's through play dates, group activities, or simply spending time with family and friends.
Social interaction is essential for learning how to communicate, effectively cooperate with others, and navigate social situations. One thing I found to be really helpful is to set up play dates with a specific goal in mind. Like maybe they're working on sharing or taking turns.
That's a great idea, and it provides a structure for the interaction, which can be especially helpful for kids who are struggling with social skills.
Exactly. And as children grow, we can also encourage them to participate in extracurricular activities that align with their interests.
Like sports, music, dance, or theater.
These activities provide opportunities for children to develop their skills, build confidence, and make new friends.
And they learn about teamwork, discipline, and the importance of following through on commitments.
As we wrap up this deep dive into virtual autism, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of hope and empowerment.
Absolutely. While the challenges of raising children in a tech-saturated world are real, we have the knowledge and the tools to support healthy development.
By understanding the potential impact of excessive screen time, implementing those evidence-based ABA techniques, and fostering those essential skills of creativity, imagination, and social interaction, we can help children thrive.
And remember, even small changes can make a big difference.
Start by setting realistic goals for reducing screen time in your home and replacing those screen time minutes with engaging, enriching activities.
Spend quality time with your children, engage in play, read together, explore the outdoors, and most importantly, have fun.
And don't be afraid to seek professional help if you need it. There are amazing ABA therapists, educators, and other child development experts out there who can provide support and guidance.
We're all in this together, and together we can raise a generation of children who are well-rounded, resilient, and ready to face the challenges of the 21st century.
Thank you for joining us on the Bechange Center for Autism podcast. We hope you found this deep dive into virtual autism informative and empowering.
And we'll see you next time for another insightful conversation.